Hey everyone, how you doing? My name is Matt Wheelahan. I chose to do my research project on the energy sector with a focus on the strategic petroleum reserves. So as we know, the energy sector is probably one of the most crucial critical infrastructure sectors in the United States. Um, Pretty much all of the other 15 sectors depend on energy in one form or another. Um, the energy sector itself is basically divided into three subsectors, being electricity, oil, and natural gas. So I'm going to focus on the oil part of it. As we know, oil is the lifeblood of the U.S. economy. It's particularly vulnerable to a variety of risks and threats. In order to mitigate some of those threats, the energy sector, the U.S. government, found a way to store large amounts of petroleum in reserve in case of emergencies. So that's what the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is. It's 4 sites located inside the United States, and it is the world's largest supply of emergency crude oil. The energy sector, like I said earlier, all other sectors are dependent on the energy sector. The energy sector is also dependent on other sectors in critical infrastructure, such as like communications, water, transportation, financial services. And just like every other sector, there's a sector-specific plan. So the most recent one for energy was written in 2015, outlines all the different goals of the energy sector, which coincide with NIP, the National Infrastructure Protection Plan. As far as the oil part is concerned, it points out specific vulnerabilities to the oil industry, and some of those are natural disasters, extreme weather, regulatory, legislative changes. Complying with environmental factors, volatile oil prices, gas prices, demands, which is extremely relevant today. Also, some of the other ones are like operational hazards, spills, injuries, disruption due to political unrest or terrorist activity, transportation constraints, inadequate insurance coverage, aging infrastructure. I know we looked at earlier the American Society of Civil Engineers report card grade, and they gave the energy sector a D+, basically because of their aging pipelines, aging infrastructure, and things of that nature. And oil is also vulnerable to cybersecurity threats as well. So the SPR itself is owned by the federal government. It was created in 1975 due to a piece of legislation called the EPCA, the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, signed by President Ford. And its purpose was to reduce the vulnerability of the United States to any severe interruption of imported oil supplies. So prior to the signage of that, people in the United States began thinking about the concept of having emergency oil supplies. World War II prompted it. The Suez Crisis in the 50s, Eisenhower talked about it a little bit. But it wasn't until the 1973-74 oil embargo when the Arab OPEC nations basically cut off all of our supply because the U.S. was helping Israel in the Yom Kippur War. It caused long gas lines, high gas prices. So by creating, this was the big prompt for creating the SPR and signing the EPCA. So it was political, but it was also a national security concern as well. They decided to the Gulf of Mexico was basically the best place to put this because of the salt domes and its proximity to other waterways, pipelines, oil out in the Gulf. So in 1977, in July, is when they started filling these salt caverns. Basically, they're big salt domes underneath the ground in the southern United States, Texas and Louisiana, and they can put water in, like kind of make a hole in there and fill them with oil, and it stays in there pretty easy because of the properties of the salt and the properties of the oil. The SPR was created by the EPCA, and it authorized for the United States to hold 1 billion barrels of oil. As of right now, we have 4 locations, 2 in Texas, 2 in Louisiana, and their capacity is 727 million barrels. We're allowed to have more, but they just haven't found another facility, another place to put it just yet. So I'll talk to you about the 4 places real quick. You have Bryan Mound, which is in Freeport, Texas. That's south of Houston. They have 20 of these caverns. Max capacity is 247 million barrels, and a drawdown rate of 1.5 million barrels per day. So basically, that's how much they could take out if they need it, 1.5 million barrels per day. Big Hill storage facility, that's in Winnie, Texas. That's a little west of Beaumont. They have 14 caverns, max capacity of 170, and a drawdown rate of 1.1 million barrels per day. Hackberry, Louisiana, that's south of Lake Charles, 22 caverns, 220 max capacity. They can get 1.3 million barrels out of there a day if they need to. And the 4th one is in Plaquemine, a little south of Baton Rouge along the Mississippi River. It's called Choctaw, and it's a little smaller. It's 6 caverns. Max capacity is 76 million barrels and a drawdown rate of about a half a million barrels a day. So, like I said, total fill level, total max capacity is 727. That was actually reached for the first time in December of 2009 when President Bush, I think he started getting them, ordered them full after 9/11 and continued on through 2009. The Department of Energy kind of runs the show and oversees the entire program. However, they contract out the daily management and operations. That's done by a private sector group, so they kind of create a public-private partnership. The group that runs it now is called FLOR, Federal Petroleum Operations, FLUOR. They have it through till 2024. They're basically responsible for ensuring the integrity of the caverns and maintaining operational readiness. And also right over there by Tulane, Elmwood campus, they have the project management office for the DOE. And amongst their many duties, one of them is to maintain security for these 4 sites. There's 4 ways to draw down. There's a full drawdown, which everything can be taken out, authorized by the president. Extreme circumstances, long-term, oil shortage. The second way is a limited draw, and we've never actually done a full drawdown before, where they have to take out everything. Limited drawdown also needs to be ordered by the President of the United States, but it can't exceed 30 million barrels in a 2-month period, and that would be to compensate for a short-term oil shortage. And the final way is like a test sale or an exchange. Doesn't need to be authorized by the President. Secretary of Energy can authorize that. Test sale is less than 5 million barrels and is basically just to test the workings of the system, how fast it can get out, get to the refineries, get into the U.S. economy. When something is drawn down and taken out, it takes 13 days from the time the President authorizes it to get to the U.S. economy. So it's a fairly quick process. And then an exchange is just basically if we get some better oil and we want to take out the lower grade crude and put in better oil, we can do that. Or if a private company needs help for some reason, their shortage or whatever, they can borrow it and just pay it back later. A couple of times it's been used. in a non-emergency situation, 96, 97, Bill Clinton ordered, I think it was 28 million barrels to be taken out to kind of help with the deficit. Hurricane Katrina prompted an 11 million barrel drawdown because 95% of the crude oil production in the Gulf of Mexico was shut down. Let's see, 2017 started taking a lot more out because of Harvey and Irma. And then August of this year, 2018, President Trump ordered more oil to be taken out of the SPR in preparation for the Iran sanctions. So, the SPR is a pretty important part of the energy sector, and the energy sector is vital to national security of the United States. SPR is good because it's a mitigation tool, but some people argue that it's not necessary, or that maybe private entities can control the oil reserves rather than the federal government. Either way, I think it's a good thing to have extra oil kind of stored aside for emergencies, kind of like having an extra gas tank for your car just in case something happens. So it's a good piece of it's an infrastructure in itself that needs to be protected, and it's also a mitigation tool for the U.S. For the energy sector. So that's it. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.